Microsoft have decided to add another update into the lineup for all the available content coming in 2024 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. That means, in addition to everything else, there's now going to be 4 city updates instead of 3. And this is down to the sheer abundance of city data that is available for the sim. Also, this week we saw the release of World Update 16. Now, it turns out that this was a good update all round, except there were a number of problems, and at Microsoft themselves, Jörg Newman, the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, has said that the experiments in terms of water effects watermasking were semi-successful. Some areas are very good, some areas need improvements. Aruba water, for example, looks great. The British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, all those areas look really nice. We can see some of those on the screenshots here. Some watermasks, however, are not displaying at all, and watermasks, by the way, are where you've got shallow water and how they give these lovely visual effects. So, quite naturally, when people hear that the Caribbean and the Bahamas have been updated in terms of water effects, most people, or many people likely, are going to travel to Nassau and have a look at that famous island. Unfortunately, the watermasks there are not displaying at all, and it seems that this is down to a bug, or, well, not quite a bug. The explanation is as follows. It's related to problems with the dataset for the Bahamas in general. Whilst the new tools that Microsoft used to make the new improved watermasks worked very well for the Mid and South Caribbean, they didn't work so well for the Bahamas. So what's going to happen here is that Microsoft need to go back in and redo much of the work for this particular area. Now, they didn't give a release date as to when this rework would be made available, and the impression I got is that it probably won't be anytime soon. But it is on the cards, Microsoft are very much aware of it, and they do want to get it fixed. Of course, it's not all let down all around because there's still some very nice areas and very nice water effects. So travel around the Mid to South Caribbean and you're going to see some very nice areas. Now, moving away from world updates and towards sim updates, Microsoft took a bit of time during their recent Q&A to explain that no, they're not setting aside Flight Sim 2020 so they can work on Flight Sim 2024. They're working on both of these side by side. And the proof of this is the fact that 2020 is going to be getting so many updates throughout this year. Of specific focus is sim updates 15 and 16. Now, in one of these, we're going to be seeing improvements to air traffic, ATC, there's going to be content improvements, ground control improvements, performance improvements, stability, changes to snow coverage, in addition to some other new features as well. And whilst they didn't get into specifics on each of these bullet points, it seems pretty obvious that sim updates 15 and 16 are going to be pretty significant. Something that they did talk about specifically though is that some ATC voiceover fixes are coming for sim update 15. So for those of you who have noticed problems with that, that should be something to look forward to really. Now, moving on to airplanes, the A320neo, that's the alternate version made by AnyBuilds, which is I guess close to a study level. I know not everyone likes that term, but it is a term that's out there. This was originally planned for sim update 15, and it still might make it, but Microsoft wanted to say that it's very tight at the moment. So whilst it's still possible that the A320neo might arrive with sim update 15, it's possible that it may be delayed and have to end up in a future update slightly later on. We'll have to see on that count, but good to know either way. Now, we touched on the topic of snow depth just there, and snow depth has been improved with recent updates. This has been a particular problem for people who like flying around the northern latitudes. It's especially noticeable in areas at the top of Canada and into Alaska, where the snow build-up in mountainous regions just doesn't seem to be accurate. So this has been improved over recent updates, but it's still not quite right. One of the problems that's caused this is the lack of available snow depth data in many other regions of the world. So yeah, that's led to a fair amount of inaccuracies. Related to this is lakes. Now, in the early days, many of the lakes were simply not frozen. There'd be a load of snow everywhere and just pure blue lakes. Fully aware that this didn't look quite right, Microsoft decided to simulate some of the frozen lakes. And the way they did this was to set a limit on the amount of snow. If there was more than 27 centimeters of snow in an area, then the lakes would get frozen. The parameter was really as simple as that. The problem is that this led to far too many lakes being frozen that really shouldn't be. So what they're going to do is increase the number here. They're going to increase the depth of snow that's required before lakes actually get frozen. They didn't give a specific centimetre depth here, but they said it is going to be much higher. So this means that ultimately lakes won't be freezing everywhere all the time. So this, along with improvements to snow coverage, is going to be an ongoing process. Now there's a few other pieces of news I want to cover here. One of these is related to the marketplace. The developer community has been asking Microsoft if it's going to be possible to allow them to charge a small fee when upgrading from an old, outdated version of a product to a newer version. Jörg Newman said he doesn't know, but said that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 will contain a big rework of the marketplace, so maybe it's possible. Either way, the pertinent information here, at least for me, is knowing that the marketplace itself is going to be getting an overhaul for the next version of the sim. And also for those people who I've noticed are still asking in the various comment sections to some of my previous videos, apparently Microsoft have said in the past that yes, pretty much most of the content that you've purchased from the in-game marketplace, the in-sim marketplace, will also be compatible with Flight Sim 2024. Now, for those of you who don't use the sim on a PC or a console, but instead like to use the Xcloud version, and I don't know how many of you actually watch these videos or use the Xcloud version, but it essentially allows you to play the sim on a mobile phone or other smaller device. Microsoft did touch on some details about this service. Now, apparently, the Xcloud service for Flight Sim is pretty popular. They say on average they have 250,000 to 500,000 simmers per month actually playing on Xcloud. Microsoft said they're making some improvements on the Xcloud version. Specifically, they showed that they're going to make improvements to the control system, and this should be pretty helpful for those of you who actually play on that version of the sim. And lastly, we come to the subject of VR. So VR is still going to be a supported platform for Flight Sim 2020. There's been some concern within the community that they've noticed Microsoft are moving on from VR and instead changing their focus to AR, augmented reality. Jörg Newman has said that this won't have any effect on Microsoft Flight Simulator and they're still going to maintain their focus on VR. But yes, one of the problems they do have here, and people are quite right to notice that there has been some trouble, it all comes down to the amount of VR platforms that Microsoft support when it comes to Flight Simulator, and that any change needs to be verified on all of these different platforms. It is substantial work, it takes quite a bit of time, and it doesn't always, I guess, go 100% to plans. They're very adamant though that VR is still a major focus for them. Now finally, world updates. And this is in specific relation to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. At this point, there's been 16 world updates for Flight Sim 2020. What's going to happen to all of these when it comes to Flight Sim 2024? Well, it turns out that all existing world updates will be included with the new sim. However, what's undecided is whether they'll be included by default. The plans could be that the world updates are directly included in the initial download of Flight Sim 2024, or alternatively, they're added as a free separate download to the marketplace, much as they currently work. That for now is undecided, but the good news here is that the 16 world updates and all the other ones that are still yet to come will indeed be a part of the next sim. So there we have it. That's all the news for Microsoft Flight Simulator this week. Why not check out the other videos on the screen right here meanwhile, and I'll catch you next time.